Welcome to Talkin' Jets. My name's Ryan and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot, Green Bean. We will have Matt O'Leary here in just a little bit. He's leaving the office. He's got a little bit of time. He should be in here around 9 o'clock or so. I saw him in the chat. Hello, Matt. Green Bean, how you doing tonight?
Dude, I'm in such a good mood. I'm hoping I don't freeze up on you guys too bad today. I'm having concerns, but anyway, I'm psyched to be here. I'm ready to get into it.
All right, guys, if you have not already, make sure you sub up Matt and Green Bean. Their links are in the description down below. And then don't forget to drop a like on this video as you come in. It helps out the channel. It helps out the stream. It makes it so when people come in and watch this after the fact, they know it's a good stream. So it helps us out. So make sure you smash that like button. Green Bean, have you heard the news that our good friend Henry Anderson has been released?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's one of those things, you know, like last year it was Brian Winters. Remember, we were all convinced he was going to be the first cut, and for some reason he made it through like so far, and then he got released in a very odd time. It almost looked like we were just going to keep him, but I'm glad Henry Anderson, it's just, we don't have to worry about this anymore. Let's recoup the $8.2 million so we can stop this Crowder talk about cutting our best receiver that we've had over the past 2 years. And I'm good. I'm ready to see him. You know, look, Henry Anderson was nice that first year. He did have a blocked punt last year, but who can deny he's been disappointing, right?
Look at the chat real quick. I have so Gitmo Bob. I'm sorry, dude. He goes, when are you gonna fix the draft order, Ryan? So on our little side panel over here, I have things ticking through, and I have the draft order, and I have the order of the big board and whatnot from Tankathon, and I haven't updated it since like the last round of the playoffs or the second to last round of the playoffs, so it's still goofy. And normally when we do the 3-panel thing, I don't have that. So I didn't think about it. I didn't have it on last night. So I was like, I got to fix it. I was like, I don't have to worry about it. And then Green Bean and I are sitting here in the Zoom meeting. I'm getting stuff ready for the chat. I'm like, I'm just waiting for O'Leary here. And then Green Bean goes, yo, what's going on with O'Leary? And I was like, oh, man, I completely forgot. He texted me the other day, and he said he's not coming on until like 9 o'clock. I was like, damn it. And I completely forgot about this friggin' draft order thing here. Ali's in the chat.
Yeah.
How you doing, Ali? I will send you the link, but hold off because for the sign back there, I'm gonna have a coupon code for it. The guy that I got it through, I told him, I was like, I got a bunch of people asking me about this sign. I was like, if you give me a coupon code, I was like, I'm sure I could send some people your way. So hang tight for that. I'll get that out there for those of you that want that.
Nice.
But yeah, okay. So let's talk about Henry Anderson. 2019. Thought he played well. I was very happy with him, and then we go into this season. I'm like, all right, let's see some pressure and whatnot. I think with Salah coming in anyway, he was kind of a square peg in a round hole. So I don't think it's a huge loss. I wish him the best. Like, he seems like a pretty good dude, but $8.2 million, whatever we save, definitely worth it for the Jets, and it's definitely something that all of us have kind of talked about in terms of our not camp cuts, but our off-season cuts to make cap space and whatnot. So I'm not too shocked here. You brought up Jamison Crowder. Originally, I was really, really high on keeping Crowder. And maybe this is just time ticking by and me just not thinking clearly, because I'm almost at the same point with Sam Darnold where I'm like, I don't mind holding on to Sam. When at the end of the season, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, no, we can't hold on to Sam. So it's almost like fatigue from like different things. And it's not that I'm like totally against keeping Sam or I'm totally for cutting Crowder or whatever, but as I see the free agent market come up, and actually I'm working on my Fuck, Marry, Kill series, which I've been delaying. I haven't put it out so far, and I realized that free agency is like 2 weeks away, and I'm like, oh no, I got to do this. So I have a wide receiver video, an edge rusher video, a offensive lineman video. I'm probably going to do a cornerback video. I want to do 5 of them, but I got 3 of them already, like all the stats and everything. I'm looking at like how everything was graded out, and I'm looking at the receivers, and I'm like, man, you know what? I could honestly get behind cutting Crowder, because Crowder's only going to be on the team for 1 more year. Like, that's it. We're going to save $10 million if we cut him. if we could sign someone that's somewhere around $10 million and replace Crowder, maybe it's Curtis Samuel because he's 25 years old or whatever. Like, or maybe it is Juju. I know a lot of people don't want to hear Juju, but the guy's phenomenal from the slot. He's played really well. I don't like the whole, he seems a little too dialed into his social media as opposed to like playing football. But I'm not as against cutting Crowder as I once was. Does that make sense? Like, what are your thoughts?
No,
on
it's a funny thing because well, dude, you nailed it in the beginning of that little blurb you said there. But it's like we're so keyed in on everything during the off season. We deconstruct everything to the 10th degree. And it's like, as we go on, I start to reconsider I had these firm stances earlier on. And it's like, as we move forward, I'm like, maybe we could do this and maybe we could do that. Like with the Sam Darnold thing, I made in my last podcast, I did a thing like the real Sam Darnold equation. So it's not Sam versus Zach Wilson. It's Sam and all the picks that we could gain moving back. And that's how you have to look at it. And while I was making that video, I started thinking to myself, we should keep Sam. Like, just for myself. I'm like, I started thinking that shit. Like, this would probably be smart to keep Sam. And I was so rigid on the other side of things for a while. But where Crowder is concerned, man, I think in the event you don't need the money, like if we're at a place where we are not up against the cap, I don't see a reason to cut him. He's been a consummate pro. He's never complained. He plays hard every down. He's effective. He's a good receiver. He's like a top 10 slot guy. And I think he's just, there's no reason to create the need. It's like we were talking about last night in the mock. You want to add talent, not replace talent, if you can avoid that. And I think it makes a lot of sense just to keep him. Now, in the event we sign Watson and we sign Robinson, and it's like, okay, now we need money for some other guys. Okay. I get it if we need it. But until we get to that point, I would say leave Crowder alone, man. Let him be a part of the solution because I think he can be.
Yeah, I'm right there with you 100% because it's almost similar to the George Fant thing for me. Like, I don't think George Fant's bad. I think he did fine. I think with a preseason and another year with maybe more competent guard play, I think he's going to, play really well. And the thought is, Crowder and George Fant, neither one of them has a date where they get like some big roster bonus or anything like that. So I would say hold on to him until you need the cap, just like you said. Why open up a hole when you don't have to? Like Crowder and Fant, they could both be good, locker room type guys. Guys want to, players don't want to see other players leave. They understand it's a business and there's that side of things. But to cut Crowder to make $10 million in space when you have $80 million in cap space, and then say we only use $50 million of it, like you look kind of stupid. And I don't really love that. Just like you said. Are there any players, now that we're starting to see Henry Anderson released, are there any thoughts on who else you think might get cut?
Well, let me comment on what you just said too. Like, look at George Fant. Like, George Fant was a guy that when Joe Douglas signed him, he was looked at as a consolation, a panic move by Joe Douglas when he lost out on Jack Conklin. The truth of the matter is that Joe Douglas did prefer Jack Conklin, but they did their evaluation on Fant to such a degree that they wanted him anyway. It wasn't like a panic. They already did their scouting and everything, and they evaluated him and called him a starting right tackle, where most people were not considering him there. He was playing tight end and all that sort of stuff. So when George Fant comes over, he ends up having such an impact on the team that he gets voted to a captain. So that's the kind of guys that we're talking about. Crowder you've never heard a negative word from this guy. He has just put his nose down and walked forward with us no matter what was going on. And you know damn well that the players didn't like Gase, but you never heard it from Crowder. So I think it's important. Like, at some point, man, we got to keep some guys. At some point, we have to start keeping guys. We can't just turn it over every year. And there are guys that are worth keeping. I think George Fant, Marcus Maye, Crowder, those are the types of guys. Like you said, so great. We get $10 million. We already have 80 and change. Like why do we need all this money for who? So anyway, but I think we're going to see guys like Doxson is going to be gone. I do think that one of the guards, if not both of the guards, are going to be released. I think it's probably Alex Lewis. I think Van Roten has a little bit more upside, and Van Roten started cold and got better. Alex Lewis started strong and just degraded as the year went by. Now we don't know if Joe Douglas sees it the same way. He could be looking at Gase and go, "This guy's such a fucking moron. He doesn't know how to do anything," and he still likes both of his guys. But I could see at least one of them being released. I think we're going to let most of our 19 free agents go. I can see guys like Hewitt, Basham maybe, and maybe one of the Smiths, the wide receivers retained. But I think in large part, like we talk about all the time, Lange is going to be retained. But I think most of these guys are going to be allowed to go. But I think Henry Anderson and then one of the guards are probably where we're going to get the most bang for the buck as far as recouping some draft capital.
Yeah, salary cap space, not draft capital. But yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. I think I agree with you. Yeah. I think Alex Lewis is I knew what you meant. I think Alex Lewis is a goner for sure. I actually saw something in my stream last night. I don't know who posted it, so I forgive me. But they were saying how Alex Lewis got in a fight with someone, in the locker room, and that's why Gase benched him. And I could definitely see Alex Lewis getting moved on from. I think Van Roten has earned a tryout in training camp. If we have, say, we bring in Joe Thuney, and then we have multiple people like Cameron Clark, Van Roten, Elflein battling for the other guard position, then I think there's a chance he could get cut at that point. I do think the Jets try to retain Elflein. I think there's a reason we picked him up off waivers. Not that he played phenomenally well or anything, but I think having him in the offense, being able to go through a preseason with us, coming through halfway through the season is never really a great thing. Guys, make sure you smash that like button. We have over 300 people here on YouTube. We got another 30 or so from Facebook and Twitch. So make sure you drop a like there or a follow or whatever. And then don't forget, if you want to be a part of the members only 10 o'clock mock, I'll be doing a 10 o'clock mock after this stream at about 10:15. So we'll try to discuss what we want. Do we do a keep Sam Darnold type thing? Do we do an all trade thing like Green Bean has done in the past, or do we do a take the quarterback and run type deal? So we'll get into that at the end of this show. All right, so moving on from Jets cuts, I want to talk about some other news that we heard this week, and that's Marcus Maye potentially getting franchise tagged. Potato. Let's see, what did he say? Oh, Ali comes in the chat. He says, it was Field Yates' tweet about the Jets' salary cap space. Allen Robinson liked it. Yeah, of course, Allen Robinson wants to get paid. He wants $20 million. I don't know if Joe Douglas is necessarily going to make that move. But we'll get into the wide receivers in just a second. Let's talk about Marcus Maye getting the franchise tag most likely. The franchise tag is set to be about $10 to $11 million for the safety position. The way the franchise tag used to work, it was the average of the top 5 highest paid at your position would be what you'd get. Now there is a new rule, thanks to the new CBA that was agreed upon this past offseason. It's going to be the average of the top 5 at your position over the course of the last 5 years. So the salary, the franchise tag is actually dropping by 10%. So Jamal Adams, when your time is up, you're going to get slapped with the franchise tag and make less money than you did, than you would have had the CBA not changed. But Marcus Maye, what are your thoughts on Maye getting franchised?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is we haven't seen Joe Douglas really re-sign anybody of consequence. Obviously, last year we signed Jenkins and Hewitt and those guys for 1-year contracts pool, but we haven't seen him really retain and extend a player yet. And we're going into his second full off season, right? So there's a concern for me. Why, Marcus Maye is a slam dunk to do that. So there is a concern, like, okay, why aren't we doing that? Now, once you look at things like the salary cap dropping, it might be beneficial. If you don't sign a long-term contract now, if you wait till next year, it could be beneficial monetarily and things like that. But I think it's risky on both sides not to just extend him. And the most importantly, that the team isn't seeing a guy that has obviously earned it. He's a team leader. He's been here his entire career, been through the bad times without saying much. He's always been a positive player. Why is it that we can't extend him? So I think there's a benefit there. Lock the guy up 3 or 4 years, get him into his 30s and call it a day, and have him be the first one that you retain, and just put that positive vibe into the ether. But I think that there might be an unwillingness to do that from both sides. And if Maye decides to choose that risky, I only want to take the salary, the franchise tag and wait it out, what happens a lot of the times? These guys get injured and then they ruin their opportunity. So I think it could be a negative on both sides. I would personally hope and prefer if they just locked them up. They've had all year to do it. Like, what's the issue? What's the holdup, I wonder?
I think my thought on a long-term deal with Maye right now. So I do think it's a lot of different layers to this. There's Budda Baker was drafted 3 slots ahead of Marcus Maye. He is 2 or 3 years younger than him, but the stat lines are pretty similar between the two. Taken 3 picks ahead of him. Budda Baker got just under $15 million a year. I don't really want to pay Marcus Maye that much money. That's a lot, but I do think that I would like to retain him long term. I think the best route, because like you said, the whole potential injury thing, I think that could play a part. That Marcus Maye is 28 years old. He is going to try and get the biggest contract possible. I 100% believe it. I think he deserves to try and go for that, because it's going to be the only contract that he's really going to sign that could get him that much money. That said, if we want to come together and be like, hey, look, Maye, we love you. We want you here long term. We'll give you 4 years, $12 million a year, 2 years fully guaranteed. It's going to be a $1 million bump from the franchise tag. So you're going to make more money than you would have made there. I think that's something that Maye should want to embrace. Now, that said, if he wants to gamble on himself, that's fine. The issue is he's not really an elite safety. I think the elite players this offseason are going to get paid similarly to how other guys in other free agent classes have gotten paid, but I think you'll see that second tier of free agency players, guys like Maye, guys like maybe I don't know, insert other names that are not quite elite, but like on the upper echelon. They could be impacted by this salary cap being dropped. So is it good for Maye to play on the franchise tag for 1 year, take his $11 million, and then try to cash in and make up the $4 million difference from this year next year? Or does it make more sense to, just sign the deal now? It may not be as high as next year's potential deal, but at least you're getting locked in, you're getting some guaranteed money, and you have, some financial security, because the NFL is scary. Dude, you have one bad knee injury, you're cooked. You're out. Like, at 28 years old, it's going to be really tough for Maye to recover from that. And that means he's only going to get a 1-year prove-it deal most likely after that. So I think it's in both parties' interests. Like, I think if we franchise tag and we just say, like, hey, look, let's work out a contract. That being said, the Jets are also going to have a situation where where the new defense is coming in. They may want to see Maye in this new defense. And how does this look before you really pull him into a long-term deal? So I think there's a little bit on both sides that you could say that Maye wants to get franchise tagged. The Jets want to franchise tag him. It's an interesting sort of situation for the Jets. Do you see them working out a long-term deal over the course of the summer? They would have they would have till I think July to work on a deal.
Yeah. Well, I know. Look, and there are definitely positives. Like, it's undeniable. Slapping him with the franchise tag and taking a wait and see. From our perspective, it's smart monetarily. There's a definite batch of positives that come with it. And like we just said, for Maye too, there could be positives. Again, I think it's one of those situations where it might be more positive just to pay the guy, lock him up. And, you don't want to break the bank for him. You don't want to give him $14 million a year. I just think that's silly. We already saw that Joe Douglas is not going to do that for his safety. And I don't think it's a wise decision to change his mind on that. At the same time, like I said, at some point, we're going to need to retain people. Now, maybe Joe Douglas has no interest in retaining anybody he doesn't draft. Maybe. We don't know that. But I think Maye is a good one to start with. And I do think that we're going to franchise tag him. And I think if we get to the point of franchise tagging him, we're probably not going to see the extension. They're gonna follow through on it and see where it goes. You know what I mean? As opposed to mid-season locking him up. I think we'll just take it to the end because we could franchise him again after that if we wanted to. But anyway, I think that's what ultimately happens. I think that we just franchise him.
Yeah, so that's interesting because if you franchise tag him this year and say it's around $11 million, then you go into next year, he would get 120% above what he was just paid to get franchise tagged again. And realistically, if you're playing from like a smart money ball kind of situation, that's what the Jets should do. They should franchise tag him this year, they should franchise tag him next year, and then they should let him walk, hoping that we have added enough free agents and signed enough players in free agency and drafted enough players that we want to retain that the Jets would wind up getting a comp pick. Because right now, if you let Maye walk, we're going to sign so many free agents, it doesn't make any sense to let him walk because you're not going to get the comp pick. Like, retain him now, maybe franchise tag him next year. I do agree with you. I think there is some goodwill that the Jets should be looking to try and do because we haven't retained any players that we've really brought in. Not that, who was the last? Was it Muhammad Wilkerson, the last player we really extended that was drafted by us? I think it might have been.
No, Enunwa. Enunwa was a player that
was so much better.
Well.
That was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
These are, dude. Do you know Enunwa costs? I think it's $3.5 million on our cap this year. I might have the number wrong, but that's how bad of a contract that really was. Like Trumaine Johnson counts $8 million on our cap this year. Enunwa costs $3.5 million on our cap this year. Those guys are ancient history, and we're still paying for them. Bell costs $4 million on our cap. That's the kind of contracts that we've been dealing with. Enunwa, in my opinion, is the worst contract we've ever signed. Not for the money. The money was on the high side, but it was we gave him injury guarantees while he was on injured reserve. He hasn't made it through a whole season in his whole career, and he's on injured reserve. We re-sign him and give him injury guarantees. It's absurdities, really. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. So I think he might have been the last one, obviously excluding Jordan Jenkins and those smaller contracts that we gave out last year. But yeah, we don't retain people, man. It has to change at some point.
So I just pulled up over the cap to see. Whoops. I pulled up over the cap to see what is going on in terms of our dead money situation. So we do have 3 contracts, a total of $15 million that we're losing this year that we can't use on other players because we've signed bad contracts. So that's just what it is. Like, it sucks when you have you're signing these free agents or your own players, and then you cut them before their contracts are through, and then you wind up just having dead money. Like, yeah, you save cap space by cutting them, but like Le'Veon Bell, $4 million, Quincy Enunwa, 3.6, Trumaine Johnson, $8 million. Like, those contracts are horrible. Absolutely. Million? Bell, I could understand. Like, I could wrap my head around Bell. You want to get your young quarterback the most elite weapon since Marshall Faulk. 100% agree. Makes sense. It didn't hurt us from signing anyone else. We had $25 million in salary cap space left over last year, so it's not like his contract prevented anything. But, like, Trumaine Johnson and Quincy Enunwa, those contracts, C.J. Mosley's the albatross in the room right now, but Yeah, it's brutal.
Oh my God, so bad. Yeah, dude. And it's like, look, not to say that getting these players wasn't a good move, right? Like, a nun, who didn't like a nun was on the field game? Who didn't like the way that guy played? He would level you, he'd run you over, he could juke you, he was fast, he had great hands. He was exciting to watch. I loved the type of player he was. But again, he was always injured and serious injuries like neck surgeries and things like that. Giving him injury guarantees while he's on injured reserve, just it's like it's a joke, and then you look at the contracts, like when your players are so bad that you can't even keep them on the team, like you have to eat 2 years of $8 million in dead cap money because they're that bad. You at least want to get the value of having the open roster spot. Like that's how bad Tremaine Johnson really was. He did not even care. Like he was on the field and didn't care. They had to get him off the field. That's how bad it was. So not only is the contract terrible, but the player is terrible. And that comes with, improper scouting and player evaluation. That's where Joe Douglas and Chad Alexander and Rex Hogan really have to come in and be able to foresee who's going to get the money and still play. Or they're going to just sign out, check out. Hey, I got my money. Screw it. I want to be healthy when I get older. You know what I mean? So that's how bad it really was. When you look at that 15 point whatever of dead cap money this year, it's painful,
Yeah, I mean, imagine like the Jets miss out on Joe Tooney because they have these dead contracts. Like you have $15 million. Like that's the money for Tooney right there. Like that's the type of player you just threw away because of a bad contract. Like that's why you have to be so careful in everything you do from a contract perspective when it comes to free agency. Jets by Jimmy. What's up, dude? Thank you for the super chat. He says, I've done the math. Maye's tag will be $11.6 million. And for $3.4 million more, we can make Maye the highest paid safety in the NFL. When I was looking at over the cap, now maybe their numbers are a little off. It's definitely possible because I don't think they've actually released what the numbers are going to be. Let me see, where's Marcus Maye on here? They franchise tag him. They say it's 11.1 or $11.2 million. So real close. I would say, God, for the extra 3.4 million or 3 point, whatever. Let's call it $4 million. We'll round up. For $4 million more, do you think it's worth signing Maye to the highest safety contract this offseason?
Look, I love Jimmy. Jimmy does the Monday Night Mocks with me. He's a great guy. That's not 3.4 million once. That's 3.4 million each year on the contract. And it's like, yeah, you can separate it and call it 3.4 million. I like to call it 14 million. You know what I mean? Like that's what that really is. I don't know if you want to give 14 million to a safety. And if that's the holdup, if Maye's saying, hey, I want 14 million, no ifs, ands, or buts, then okay, we want to keep you. We'll give you the franchise tag and we'll see where this goes. Like you said, next year he gets released and more than likely we'll be able to get a comp pick because of the way Joe Douglas is filtering through this process. I actually think we're going to be able to get comp picks this year. If we do, in fact, let everybody go, we'll be able to get a 6th and a 7th, which will be nice. But if that's the holdup, then that's the holdup.
I don't think we'll get. You think we'll get comp picks? I don't think we'll get any comp picks. Because the way it works is if you sign players to contracts, they have to be signed though. Yeah. Well, we have 19 free agents. 9 or 11 of them are legitimate potential to be signed, almost guaranteed to be signed. Okay. Now they're most of them outside of like Brian Poole and Jordan Jenkins, and they're going to get low end contracts. Okay. So they, it goes by tiers, as you know. So like if somebody signs a $15 million contract and you sign somebody for $400,000, they don't erase each other. Okay. So there are some tier factors that come into play. But if we lose and 11 players get signed, if we do not sign 11 free agents, which I don't think we will,
We stand the very real potential to get a comp pick. And because I think a lot of these players, look who was cut today, Kyle Rudolph, one of the guys I really like. If we signed him today, it doesn't factor against the comp pick equation. And I think Douglas is smart enough to factor that in to what he's trying to do. I'm just saying it's possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what you just said makes a ton of sense, and it's something that doesn't get brought up enough, and that's the idea of signing players that were cut, because those players do not factor into the comp pick formula to negate that factor. I didn't realize that, like, say the Jets lose, 10 free agents to other teams. If we sign Joe Thuney and we sign Allen Robinson, I was under the impression, because we signed such, like, high-priced guys, that it would wipe out some of the lower ones. But if the Jets are able to get like an extra sixth or an extra fifth or something like that, that's awesome.
Yeah,
but it would be next year.
It will. So the way, yeah, right, exactly. But the way that it works, and believe me, there's a lot of mud here. I've read numerous articles on breaking down the comp pick equation, but for some reason the NFL doesn't let everybody know everything. There's still secret aspects of the process that they don't leave. People have to make assumptions, right? So there are tiers. Now, if you sign Joe Thuney at $15 million a year and you lose two guys and they only sign $500,000 contracts, he will erase them. But if you have four guys at $500,000, he won't erase all of them. See what I'm saying? So, like, let's say we sign 5 free agents and they're all pretty big money, but we lose 11, we're going to get comp picks. Now, I don't know exactly how many, but more than likely there'll be 6th or 7th even. But the thing is, we don't have any 7th round picks over the next 2 years. We could use them, man. We could use those picks, and they're free picks. We should be using that equation as much as we can. Because Ryan, we're going to see a lot more cuts this year, and not for nothing, we have those back end picks in the 5th and 6th that we can trade for guys that are going to get cut. So we could say to a team, look, you're about to cut whoever, we'll send you a 5th round pick and you just cut them to us. And I think we're going to see some of that, which again wouldn't count against the comp pick equation. And then we get the pick back when we lose a free agent.
Yeah, that's exactly where I thought this offseason was going to be going, because the salary cap was dropping and teams were trying to get under the salary cap threshold. The Jets collecting late round picks over the course of this year and next year. I would love to give up conditional picks in 2022. Like, if we re-sign this guy or whatever, if he plays a certain amount of time, then all of a sudden maybe you get an escalated pick. But yeah, I think trading for players, specifically Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, potentially Kevin Zeitler from the Giants. He's the guard. Yeah. They could save a lot of money if they cut him. He's someone that I think the Jets should look at. He's going to be 31 years old. It's not the sexy signing. He's been solid his entire career, and he doesn't have to move cities. Like, that's the type of Joe Douglas move, I think, that would really be a smart move for the New York Jets. Mutt Viles comes in with a super chat. He says, "Sup guys, Ryan, I sent you on Instagram a potential lineup I can see the Jets having after free agency and the draft. It's before we tagged Maye and released Anderson. Go Jets." So I have it up right here. He has us Zach Wilson at number 2. Najee Harris would be the running back at we took at 34. Ty Johnson would be running back 2. Curtis Samuel via free agency, 3 years, $24 million. I like that. Denzel Mims, wide receiver 2. Crowder, wide receiver 3. Jonnu Smith in free agency, the tight end, 3 years, $21 million. I don't mind that. Becton, left tackle. Thuney, left guard, 4 years, $40 million. That seems really cheap for Thuney. I think you're going to have to pay a lot more than that. I think if you're giving him a 4-year deal, I think it's going to be $60 million. He has Corey Linsley via free agency, 3 years, $31 million.
What did he say? 3 years, $40 million?
He said 4 years, 40 for Thuney. And then he said 3 years, $31 million for Corey Linsley. I do think the 3-year, $31 million is close to what Linsley will get. I would be cool bringing him. I don't know if you'll get both Thuney and him, but I would be all on board with getting both those guys if we can. McGovern, right guard. Fant, right tackle. And then on defense, he has left end John Franklin Myers, D tackle Quinnen Williams, right end Trey Hendrickson, 4 years, $40 million. That's the edge rusher from New Orleans. I like that signing a lot. I think that is a high upside guy. Zuniga as one of the linebackers, left outside linebacker, CJ Mosley, middle linebacker, Carlos Basham Jr. via the draft. Richard Sherman, 1 year, $5 million as cornerback. Asante Samuel Jr. via the draft. Slot Brian Poole on a 3-year, $18 million a year deal. I can get behind that. That's $6 million a year. Marcus Maye via the franchise tag, and then Davis as strong safety. Yeah, dude, I could get on board with that, with a lot of those picks. I think the money for Tooney is probably my biggest gripe with that. I would love to get Najee Harris at 34. I think he's an animal. I just don't want to spend a first-round pick on him. What are your thoughts on some of the things I rattled off? You know, I don't know if you've paid. Oh, hold on. We got our boy O'Leary coming in. Let me see if I can figure out how to change this in such a perfect way that it won't even bug the system. Oh, I'm probably going to have to do the the comment thing on the bottom. Ah, damn it. This is what happens when I'm not prepared. I'm so bad at this. Okay, where's O'Leary? He's going to pop in. There he is. All right, look at that, man. That is a stud if I've ever seen one. All right, let me... O'Leary! I don't know if you can hear us yet. The audio is still connecting. What's good, dude?
Thank you for letting me. What a crazy day. Oh, my God.
And I can't see him. You can see him.
I can see him. There he is. I can see him here. Yeah, Matt, tell us a little bit about your day. I'm going to try and set up some of the rest of the StreamYard stuff with everything going on. So
Henry Anderson, R.I.P. in peace, I guess, huh? I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I work at a college, so I had to do an open house tonight. And right as before, it was virtual, obviously. And right before I'm about to go on, I get the notification that Henry Anderson's cut. So I'm like, huh, okay. Like, no skin off my back. We figured that was coming. I just was wondering what the fallout was. I only saw the notification. Like, everyone okay with it for the most part, it seems like?
It seems like it, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be upset. It feels like that was very much a calculated move by a lot of Jet fans. I think everyone pretty much knew, based on the system and everything that was going on with LaFleur, or not LaFleur, but with Saleh coming over here. I think it makes a lot of sense that we move on from him. And even cap-wise, we save, $8.3 million. It makes a ton of sense to just move on from him.
Unless he was bad the last 2 years.
I didn't think he was bad last year. I thought last year was like okay. I mean, I don't think he necessarily. Yeah,
That's true.
I don't think he necessarily like earned his contract per se, but I do think that it was the right move. So let's get your thoughts real quick. Hold on, you know what? Let's get through the rest of these super chats before I miss them on the side. So Jets by Jimmy says Buda Baker's making $14.75 million per year. Is Maye better? I don't know. I think it's debatable. So I think they're close. I really do. And I do think Buda Baker being younger played into that higher contract. I think because the Jets have the option of franchise tagging Maye, not that the Cardinals didn't, I guess, but I don't know. Matt, what are your thoughts on Marcus Maye potentially getting franchise tagged?
I think it makes sense for both sides, to be honest with you. Because Marcus Maye is an older free agent than most. Like, he's 28 years old right now. So the Jets don't have to lock themselves into paying a secondary member until over 30. But at the same time, for Marcus Maye, the market this year versus what it could potentially be next year is going to be a huge difference, because the cap is coming down and then we expect it to go up in 2022. So we could kind of say, okay, I'll do my 1-year prove it deal now and then cash in on a big payday in 2022. And maybe the Jets will keep him after that. Who knows? But I'm okay with giving him like a 3 or a 4-year deal. That's cool with me, but there's no excuse to let him walk for nothing. You franchise tag him at the very least.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, and it's an interesting thought process, because if the cap's going up next year, especially with the new TV deal, if that kicks in 2022, it could go up to, say, $210, $215 million, which would be huge. Now, we were talking about this before. The franchise tag it used to be the average of the top 5 at your position, and that was what you'd get. Now it's the average of the top 5 at your position over the course of the last 5 years. So the tag's dropping by 10% compared to what it used to be. So it's $11 million for this year. Maye being 28 years old, I do think he's going to try and ask for as much money as possible. I think that is, hands down what he should do at 28 years old. I think this is his final shot at a really big contract. Now, that being said, if the Jets were to franchise tag him this year, if they really wanted to be assholes, they could franchise tag him next year and make it cheaper than what he'd probably be getting on what he deems a fair contract. So it's a little interesting from that perspective. Moneyball-wise, I think it makes sense. But I think from player satisfaction maybe, or player, keeping the locker room together, I think you do have to pay some of your own guys. And I think Maye has absolutely earned it, especially after everything that went on with Jamal Adams. I think you pay the guy. But like you said, I think Maye would embrace getting this type of prove-it deal as opposed to maybe hitting the open market and signing a multi-year deal that could be less than the franchise tag.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's where I come in, where it makes sense for both sides, because then he could really capitalize. Because let's say he does go to the open market, maybe he gets that $12 to $14 million a year. Like, I think he's capable of that. But in this economy, who knows what kind of contracts are going to be given out?
Yeah, 100%. Mumtaz comes in with a super chat. Thanks so much. Says, Maye has not made a Pro Bowl and never been all-pro, and he deserves to be the highest paid safety. I think we need to evaluate him based on market. That's a great point, Mumtaz. I like Maye a lot, and I think as a fan of the Jets or as a fan of any team, you tend to value your players a lot higher than maybe other teams would value them. If you had told me that we would get Jordan Jenkins and Brian Poole back last year on $5 million deals, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. Like, Brian Poole's worth $7 million. Jenkins is worth $7 million. And, like,
right.
I'm totally wrong. I'm not even in the ballpark. Like, $5 million, Joe Douglas knows the pulse of this NFL and this free agent market like no other GM we've ever had. Because when Parcells came in here, he was probably the last really good GM we had. The free agency period or like salary cap and everything like that, that's relatively new. I mean, we got Parcells in, 96 or 97? And then I want to say the salary cap became a thing in, 94. So it wasn't even, that long that people had to, really study it. Like, we're only, right now really figuring out the whole rookie quarterback contract, within the last 3 years. And that became a thing back in, 2010 or whatever, 2009, whenever Cam Newton came out. It's so huge. So, Green Bean, I'll throw it to you first. Does Maye not making a Pro Bowl or being an all-pro, does that impact him becoming the highest paid safety, or should it impact him becoming the highest paid safety?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you have to look at that stuff. I mean, look, as we know it, whoever makes the Pro Bowl isn't necessarily always the best guy. You look at Jamal Adams getting all-pro this year. I think, obviously it's a more sensitive hot button over here than it is to most other fans, fan bases. But I think the idea that he was the second best safety in the NFL last year is simply not accurate. It happens all the time. Guys get in the Pro Bowl or are all pros on reputation. So I see that. But I think it's definitely part of the equation. If you're asking for number one money, like the best, to be the highest paid at a position, you probably should have made a Pro Bowl once or twice before you feel confident in uttering such words. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Matt, what are your thoughts on Maye not making a Pro Bowl, never been an all-pro? Should that impact his ability to get the highest paid safety contract, or how should that impact his contract demands?
No, that stuff's a popularity contest, especially the Pro Bowl. Like, there was, who made it last year? Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. The Viking corner, who's awful.
Yeah, it was Rhodes, wasn't it? Xavier Rhodes?
Yeah, he had a terrible season. He's in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, horrible.
Oh, yeah, how does that make sense?
Makes no sense.
So I don't put any stock into the Pro Bowl. All pro a little bit, but that's like what, the top one or two guys at each position, right?
That's tough to try. But if he's getting the highest paid safety position, maybe it's free agency. The whole argument of Dak Prescott not being the best quarterback, he could be paid the highest paid quarterback contract, even though he's not the best guy. I think that's where
it's all about supply and demand. It's economics here. So he would be the best safety on the market, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
So
I would think so.
So there's no reason for him not to cash in. I'm not saying he's going to get the $15 million to the point where he would be the highest, but would it surprise anyone if he got 12 or 13? Not me.
No, I don't think so. I think 12 or 13. I think 12 makes sense. 13, I mean, it's $1 million difference, I guess, so I shouldn't complain too much. But I think $12 million makes sense for Maye. And I think if you offer him a 4-year or 3-year, $12 million a year deal, he should take it. Like, you'll get more guaranteed money, because Green Bean brought this up before. The football's a violent sport. Maye is one bad juke away from a torn ACL and then having to go on a prove-it deal next year. And then the chances of him after a prove-it year deal at his 29th year season, that means he's going into free agency at age 30. He's not getting a huge contract at age 30.
No way.
Yeah, no, I don't see it at all.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the mock drafts that have kind of come around. And Mel Kiper came out with one. And then we'll get into the Daniel Jeremiah one. But Mel Kiper came out with one where you had the Jets trading down from 2 with the Falcons. I don't know if you guys saw what the compensation was or anything. I just assumed it was like a first-round pick next year to slide back like that. Or if he may not have even listed it. It may have just been like, hey, this is what's going to happen. He has the Jets taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida, at number 4 after trading down. The Falcons come up and take Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU. It's the guy a lot of us are talking about. And then at number 23, he has the Jets taking edge rusher Kwity Paye out of Michigan. So, Matt, I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on Mel Kiper's mock draft 2.0? What do you think about the trade down, and what do you think about the players overall?
I hate it. I did not like the move trading back to 4 and then taking Pitts. Not that Pitts is bad. It's just that's not a good value play. And then Colin Cowherd came out and had one that same exact day and had the Jets staying at 2 and taking Kyle Pitts. And my lid really exploded at that point. But just sticking with,
I didn't see that one. I got to look at that one now. Jesus Christ.
I almost had an aneurysm when I read that. That was really bad. But if you're going to move back to 4, I personally cannot justify taking Kyle Pitts there. And I don't think Kwity Paye makes it to 23. Like, at least in that spot, you could say, okay, the Jets taking an edge with their second pick seems probably pretty likely. But moving back 2 spots and taking a tight end, I don't know. I know Green Bean. I know you love him. So I'm really interested to hear what your take is. But I don't think the value is there for me at 4. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, Green Bean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I said it. That was a part of the podcast this week that I made, and I said, "Look, I'm a well-known tight end homer. I'm a tight end geek, and I wouldn't even take him at 4. He's one of my favorite players in the entire draft. And if you're gonna, Kiper's improving from mock 1.0, where he had us taking Devontae Smith at 2, so at least he traded back." The value was weird. He said they'll give up a second and more picks. Like, what the hell does that mean, Kiper? I mean, you can't even give us what you think the trade up would cost. So we gain a second and some other change. So at least there's that. But you don't take a tight end top 5. So what if Kyle Pitts is my target? What I'm doing, I'll trade back to the Falcons. That's fine, and then I trade back to Detroit or the Eagles or whoever at 7, 8, and then I'm comfortable. 8 to 15, I'm fine with taking Kyle Pitts. If you're looking for a receiver in the draft, Kyle Pitts is as good as any of them. So I'm fine with that. But again, trading back to 4 and then taking Kyle Pitts seems a bit silly for me. And Jeremiah had us take, like you said, Kwity Paye's not going to be there at 23. We'll get into the Daniel Jeremiah.
Let's
do it.
Rant. I want to rant about Mel Kiper first. Then we'll get into the Daniel Jeremiah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So trading down from 2 to 4, like I'm okay with that. I would like to trade down from 4 to like a further position beyond that too, if that were the case. I don't love passing on Zach Wilson and rolling with Sam. I think that's an issue in and of itself. But if we're talking players, Kyle Pitts, I love Kyle Pitts. Now that said, I do not want him at number 4. I think that is a huge I shouldn't say huge overdraft. Silly. Because if we slide down to pick 8 with Carolina or the wherever Detroit's picking, I think they're 7 or 9 or something like that. If we trade down with one of those teams and you want to take Pitts there, fair game, because we're probably getting a first. I mean, you get their first this year, you get a second this year, you'd probably get their first next year, you'd probably get their second next year. So I can wrap my head around those types of deals. But if you're sliding down 2 picks and you're only getting, say, like a second round pick and you're taking Kyle Pitts, I'm going to throw my TV out the window. Like this live stream would be like, no, bam, just like right to the camera. I'd be so upset. Now, that said, I love Kyle Pitts. I really love Kyle Pitts. If you trade down and you get him in the top 10, I'm all about it. I really like that, like, 7, 8, 9, 10 range. Now, that said, I do want to see more out of Chris Herndon and Ryan Griffin. I think the new offense could allow them to break out, and rather than spending a premium pick at the position, I think it would make more sense to run it back with our own guys and try to, like, raise up the roster around Sam Darnold at that point, or whoever your quarterback's going to be. Now, with Kwity Paye, the edge rusher, I agree with Matt. I don't think he makes it to 23. He was one of the players I had in my 10 players that the Jets should look at for 23, and I thought he was good enough to go like between 8 and 14. Like, I think he's that good. Now, if he somehow makes it to 23, we pull the trigger all day. I really like Kwity Paye a lot. I think he has a great personality. I think he is a team leader. Anyone that's been around him, according to all the draft reports that I've read, the scouting reports, it seems like he's a really good guy, and it seems like he fits the character mold of what Joe Douglas likes to do and what I imagine Robert Saleh would like to have on his defense. And we haven't had an edge rusher in the longest way. This guy would be legit, 100% legit. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Any more thoughts on Mel Kiper before I move on to the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft?
Please retire.
Well, I will. Yeah, I know. Cut your hair. But I do want to say I agree. Kwity Paye is not going to be there. If in fact he was there, I'm fine with superseding offense for that value of a pick. I would take Kwity Paye at 23 every day of the week. But anyway, yeah, Kiper. It's funny to me how these guys are really held in the regard that they are, because sometimes it's just asinine, this stuff, and the justifications that they give for it is just downright silly. Kiper, I don't know, man. I think it might be time.
Yeah, it's so hard. He was so high on Sam Darnold coming out that he does not want to admit that Sam Darnold may not be the guy. Like, he may not be as good as we all originally thought he was. I don't know. It's all freaking frustrating. Every time I see a mock draft, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Like, this makes no sense. Yep. Whatever. Okay, Daniel Jeremiah. So Daniel Jeremiah is really the person I think we should be looking at in terms of his knowledge. And I think him having the relationship with Joe Douglas, they were both scouts in Baltimore for a time. Last year in his mock 1.0, he had the Jets taking Mekhi Becton at 11 overall. This year in his 1.0, he had the Jets taking Zach Wilson at 2 and Travis Etienne at 23. Now, his 2.0 has since been released. He has Zach Wilson going number 2 still to the Jets. And then at number 23, he has the Jets taking Ronnie Perkins, the edge rusher from Oklahoma. Matt, what are your thoughts on Zach Wilson at 2 and Ronnie Perkins at number 23?
See, like that seems to make a lot more sense. Like there's logic involved there. And like, I feel like we have to take Daniel Jeremiah's with a grain of salt, and not because he's not a good mock drafter. I actually think he's one of the best mock drafters out there. But since he has that relationship with Joe Douglas, I don't know if he's going to say, if Joe Douglas is gonna be like, hey, this is what I'm going to do so you look good, or hey, say this, I'm really going to do this so we can throw him off a trail. So it's kind of hard for me to gauge like what to take out of his mock drafts. But to his credit, like those two moves seem to make sense for the Jets. I think both players, like Wilson at 2 is good value. We could all admit that. And at 23, going with the edge there, like that's an edge who should probably be there at that point. So to me, that makes a lot more sense.
Greenbean, what are your thoughts on Zach Wilson at 2 and Ronnie Perkins, the edge from Oklahoma, at number 23?
Yeah, it's funny, what Matt was talking about. And I go into this, I've gone into this quite a few times with Jeremiah. Like, if let's say, Ryan, you were the GM of the Jets and I'm your buddy, am I going to tip your hand for the NFL, or am I going to be inclined to kind of throw people off the scent? If we're buddies, you know what I mean? I don't want to use that relationship to further my career and blow up your spot. So I don't know what that all is. People like to amplify that relationship and all that. But the Zach Wilson pick is fine. It makes sense. Ronnie Perkins is one of the edge rushers I don't like in this draft. I feel like he's slow and lumbering and he's light. So to be 245 pounds and have that slow of a get off, I just don't like him as a pick. But the thought behind the pick makes sense as well. Edge rusher there. But here's the thing I want to say. I mean, we're as much as I believe in taking edge rushers this year, I don't want to pull the same thing that we pulled when we draft Sam Darnold, which is you draft a quarterback top 3 pick, and then you don't give him a toy to play with or protection with your next premium pick. It's like, I really am hoping that we focus on building around the damn quarterback. So anyway, I think I would like to see edge moved back to the second round, but the position, it makes sense. And it's much better than what Kiper had us doing in the front end. So I'm good overall.
So what I'll do is after we finish talking about Daniel Jeremiah, I'll bring up the Colin Cowherd draft and what he had us doing, and then we'll give our grades for what we think each of these mock drafts are like for us. So Daniel Jeremiah, Zach Wilson at 2 makes a ton of sense. I think that's exactly where the Jets are going to wind up going. I could see Justin Fields as well. I'm a little surprised Fields is falling the way that I hear him falling in a lot of mock drafts. I don't think it's right. I think he's a better quarterback than that. Now, that said, edge Ronnie Perkins at 23, I like him. I was actually a big fan. It's not necessarily my top edge rusher by any means. Like I like Patrick Jones more at 34. I like I like Basham a lot. I like Kwity Paye. I would say Ronnie Perkins is not super high on my list, but as far as like a 1-2 punch, I think this makes a lot of sense. I really hope the Jets do go edge rusher at 23. I think that's a premium position that you want to have a 5th-year option at. I don't know if the value is going to be there. Edge rusher is weird this season this draft because there's not really one elite guy. We always thought like Gregory Rousseau from Miami was going to be that guy. He opted out this year, so we don't get to see what exactly he could have been.
Right.
But I think edge rusher at 23, if the value's there, makes a ton of sense because there's a really strong free agent class of wide receivers. So like I'm okay not going offensive weapons at 23 and 34 if we don't have to, because we can then fill premium positions with cheap contracts like cornerback and like edge rusher. Now it's not a guarantee like you might get in maybe free agency per se, but I think there is value in having someone like maybe a Corey Davis or a Allen Robinson, a Kenny Golladay, someone of that nature that comes in who's an established wide receiver to help Zach Wilson, as opposed to drafting a rookie who may need to sit and go through a full training camp. Denzel Mims didn't even get a full training camp yet. So that means we're having a really, really young wide receiver room, and I don't know if I necessarily love that. I'm okay with taking a receiver at some point in this draft, but I think first round for me would be a little high if we could get one in free agency. Any more thoughts on the Daniel Jeremiah thing before I switch over to Colin Cowherd?
No, he's good. He's okay in my book.
All right. Colin had his mock draft, so I had to look it up because I hadn't seen it yet. So Colin Cowherd has the Jets taking Kyle Pitts at number 2. I don't know of like any tight end in the last 40 years that has been drafted in the top 5. And like I'm pretty sure, was Ditka a tight end? I think that might be the last tight end.
Never happened.
Yeah, it's like I want to say
no. Hunter Henry was taken top 5.
Was he really?
No,
but yeah,
no way.
Yeah, I believe so.
No.
If I remember, I think he was pick 4. Yeah.
No, not a chance. Hunter Henry, the one from the Chargers, not a chance. The highest drafted tight end in the last 15 years is Vernon Davis, and that was pick like 6, I think.
Hunter Henry was 35.
So it was 5, just 30 picks later.
Anyway.
So Kyle Pitts at 2.
Yeah. I had him at 4 in my
makes,
brain. That's weird.
Yeah, no. Kyle Pitts at 2 makes absolutely no fucking sense. Like, Colin Cowherd is one of those types of guys so get this. Before that draft, we all know Colin Cowherd is a Patriots homer. He's a Dallas homer. He loves basically playing the agitator on TV. And I do actually like Cowherd a lot. I think he brings up some really interesting points that a lot of people don't talk about. That said, he ripped on the Jets leading up to the 2018 draft, and he was like, oh, the Browns are going to get this blue-collar guy and Sam Darnold and this and that, Midwest ethos or whatever, that whole fucking video. And then he has the Jets going with Baker Mayfield. He's ripping on Baker, this whole thing like, oh, the Jets are goons. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. It's going to be a train wreck in New York. Then the Browns wind up taking Baker, and the Jets get Sam Darnold. Now you got to watch Colin Cowherd backtrack and be like, well, the Jets, they got a great quarterback. They're doing this, they're doing that. He wants him to roll. He wants to be correct on Sam Darnold, and he's going to roll with, the Jets keeping Sam and drafting him a weapon. Now, maybe trades weren't a part of this mock draft. I don't know, but Kyle Pitts at 2 is just absolutely asinine. The number 2 pick needs to be a quarterback, whether it's the Jets taking it or someone else, because there is too much value at number 2 to take a tight end.
Right.
It makes no sense. And then at number 23 with Rashad Bateman, I don't have a problem with that. I like the player. Position-wise, I'm hoping with all the money we have in salary cap space, I would really like to invest wide receiver in free agency and then spend it on a premium position in the draft at 23. I don't know. Matt, what are your thoughts on Pitts at 2 and then Rashad Bateman at 23?
I like Rashad Bateman at 23. I think he's a good player. Well, it depends on what you do. Like if you're signing Allen Robinson, you're not taking Rashad Bateman at 23.
Right.
If you're signing, I don't know, Curtis Samuel, let's say, maybe you could sell me on doing that, or even a lower guy like Rashad Higgins or something. Maybe you could sell me on doing that, but Kyle Pitts at 2 is just that's banana land. If that's really your guy, as Green Bean said, you can move back twice. If you tell me you want to move back to 7 and take Kyle Pitts, okay. I think you'll probably be there between the Detroit pick and then what 49ers pick at 12. That's the sweet spot to me, like that 7 to 12 range. Other than that, I can't take him earlier than that. I can't justify it.
Green Bean, what are your thoughts on Pitts at 2, Bateman at 23?
Yeah, again, and I think Matt just nailed it. Like Bateman is one of my favorite receivers in the draft, but if you're going to go get Allen Robinson or Galladay, then you're probably not going to grab Bateman. You might go for a Kadarius Toney or, even somebody a little smaller, Amari Rodgers kind of a guy, Rondell Moore, that kind of a thing. But I do like the pick, depending on free agency, just independent of free agency. I like Bateman. But again, I think it's just silliness to think that you're going to take a tight end at 2. Ryan, you said it perfectly. Number 2 needs to be a quarterback. I don't care if it's the Jets or the Lions or the Falcons or whoever, but it needs to be a quarterback, man. This is a robust top end of the quarterback class. If you have the pick and you don't want a quarterback, somebody will give you a whole bunch of goodies to come and get it. You take that, move back once, twice, and then take Pitts if that's your guy.
All right, guys in the chat, I want you guys to give us your grades. So we got, who do we have? We had the Mel Kiper draft where we got Kyle Pitts at 4 with Kwity Paye at 23. We've got the Jeremiah draft where we took Zach Wilson at 2 with Ronnie Perkins at 23, the edge rusher from Oklahoma. Then you have Colin Cowherd taking Kyle Pitts at 2, Rashad Bateman at 23. So list them 1, 2, 3, and then what your grades are for each one. Matt, what are your grades for the Mel Kiper draft? What would you say?
D.
Ooh. Green Bean, what is your grade for the Mel Kiper draft?
Well, considering he found a way to get Kwity Paye at 23, I think I'd give it a very strong C, because I do like the player, and this is the first time that Kiper's ever really done trades, and I think that at least he leaned into reality here. So he did get us something. The players are good. I'll give him a C.
So I went the complete opposite way you guys. I have a video coming out for this for all the people that are not in the stream tomorrow. I went through the Kiper draft. I went through the Daniel Jeremiah draft. So I'll release those the next 2 days. Maybe I'll do a Colin Cowherd one too now. I gave this a B plus because I do like Pitts. I just don't like him at 4, but I do like the idea of trading down. I'm assuming we get a first round pick. That's where the grade kind of comes from. If you're getting a first round pick, you're rolling with Sam Darnold. You're taking an elite weapon for this offense with an offense that just featured Kittle and just explosive tight end. I think Pitts makes a ton of sense for this offense. Now, with Kwity Paye at 23, I don't think he's going to be there, but home run pick. So between all that, I gave it a B plus. So I was a little more generous, I think, on the Kiper draft. With Daniel Jeremiah, Zach Wilson at 2, with Ronnie Perkins at 23. I think the position for Ronnie Perkins makes a ton of sense. I don't necessarily want him as my number one thing, but overall, I would say that's an A plus for me. I think that makes a ton of sense from where I would like the team to be built. Matt, what do you think about Daniel Jeremiah with Zach Wilson and Ronnie Perkins?
Yeah, I like that one. I think I'm going to go a B on that one.
Green Bean, what about you? What are you thinking about Wilson and then Perkins?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like Ronnie Perkins. I agree with you. I like the position. Like I said, I'm really hoping they stay offense in the first, but I totally get edge. If it's cornerback, I'm not going to like it, but edge, if it's edge, I'm okay, but I'm not okay with it being Ronnie Perkins. He's just not one of my faves. So I would say B- for that one.
Okay. And then, so Colin Cowherd, Kyle Pitts at 2, Rashad Bateman at 23, giving Sam Darnold all the weapons in the world. This one's an F for me. There's no way I can justify a tight end at 2. Like, at least a tight end at 4 after a trade down, I could wrap my head around. But a tight end at 2 just makes no damn sense at all. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, it's got to be an F. I couldn't get past 2. He could have had freaking Trevor Lawrence at 23, and I wouldn't have been able to get past number 2.
Green Bean, what do you think about Colin's draft?
I can't give it an F because I like both the players. So again, I agree with you guys 100% where we should not be taking Pitts at 2. But again, we did come out of the first round with Pitts and Bateman, so I would be happy with that. So I give it a B.
Ooh, yeah. What? A B. Green Bean, I'm going to kick you in the green beans. I'm very upset with that. That is not okay. But okay, I see where you're coming from with that. I understand the thought process with coming away with 2 players. If you get 2, if Pitts is a home run pick and the second quarterback off the board is a bust, that pick is going to look incredibly, great later on down the road. So, there's a point in time where J.J. Watt was booed by the Texans. So picks can turn around real quick. You never know. I like that. I feel like we should probably grade some mock drafts each week on this. Like, this is fun. I actually enjoy that.
Agree.
Gives some discussion topics.
Yeah.
All right. Tony Lee coming in with a super chat says A-Rob says, Allen Robinson saying, loves playing in bigger markets, mentions the Jets and Giants, also trains in new Jets Twitter all over it. Also trains in new Jets.
Maybe New
Not
Jersey.
Exactly sure.
Would be my guess. Maybe trained in New Jersey.
New Jets Twitter. I don't know. Maybe also.
Wait, what'd you say?
Jet Twitter. I think he's saying he's training in New Jersey. I think is what Tony Lee's trying to say. But Allen Robinson coming to New York seems to make a lot of sense. The Jets and Giants both need wide receiver help in the worst way. The Jets have a ton of cap space. There's rumors that Watson's coming here. I still think it's going to happen. I really do. I think we're going to have Watson as our quarterback come week 1. Now, what do you guys think about Allen Robinson? Do you think he's coming to the Jets? Do you think he would take a discount without Watson here? Because we may not see Watson here until closer to draft day. Green Bean, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think about Robinson liking playing in a bigger market?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all like we kind of touched on a little earlier. I think this is Robinson saying it has come to my attention that the Jets have more money than almost everybody else, and I like that. I think that's what we're seeing here. I don't think Robinson's going to be the guy that we ultimately come away with, I would be very happy with that. If he was willing to acknowledge the salary cap drop and say, hey, I'm willing to sign a 1-year contract or a 2-year contract for 13, 12, something like that, I'd be psyched about it. And then see, where we are next year. But unfortunately, I think there's going to be some team that gives him 16 to 18, 20 million kind of a thing. And I think that's going to be too rich for us. But it's interesting. It's more fun for us Jets fan to speculate.
I think I don't know. I think with the salary cap dropping, if we can get him for 17 million, I'd be pretty happy. I think he's going to want north of 20. And I think he's in a normal cap year, probably deserving of it. Tony Lee did jump in. He said he meant New York. Can't type today in the same interview. They talk about Zach Wilson, and he likes what he saw from the tape that he watched. I guess he's talking about Allen Robinson, maybe liking what he saw from Zach Wilson. So it would be really interesting to get him in here. I don't know if he knows that the Jets are not the McCagnon Jets of old. We're not just going to throw money around willy-nilly. Like for me, when I'm looking at the wide receiver market, I know Matt's brought it up with Curtis Samuel. I'm looking at Curtis Samuel. I'm looking at Corey Davis. Those are the two guys I really want the Jets to go after in free agency. And if that were the case, I would be cutting Crowder if you could get both those guys in here. Matt, what are your thoughts on Robinson liking playing in a big market with the Jets or the Giants?
That would be nice because I want him on my football team. I'm with you. I think that in a normal year, he's probably worth $20 million. I don't know if he's going to get the $20 million or if Joe Douglas is going to want to shell out the $20 million. That's why today I did a video on wide receiver options for the Jets. And I talked about, the top end guys and, the Galladays and the Godwins and stuff like that are probably going to get 16, 17, 18, maybe Robinson gets up to 20 million. But you bring up a good point in the Curtis Samuel and Corey Davis. Like those are two guys who are versatile, and that you're probably getting 800, 900 receiving yards from them, and they're going to cost half of what the other guys are going to cost. It'll probably be $8, $9, $10 million for one of those two guys. I don't think the Jets would sign both. To me, I would look to target Curtis Samuel and then maybe look to add a wide receiver in like the second or third round on top of that. And instead of having one premier guy, I just am looking to build out and have a nice 4 core of receivers.
Yeah, I think that is probably closer to what we're going to wind up doing, because when you look at the 49ers offense, it's all those quick, shifty guys like a Curtis Samuel. Like I could almost see Curtis Samuel, Crowder, Mims, and like I don't even know, because Samuel can play like a ton of different positions. He's really, really versatile. Could really go all over the place. I see some guys in the chat talking about Dak Prescott. I would love to sign Dak Prescott. I would not love to trade for Dak Prescott. The Jets are going to have a great option at number 2 with Zach Wilson. If you said maybe Dak for 2 straight up, maybe I can consider it if you think Dak's healthy enough, but I would not give up more than number 2 for Dak at all. And even then, I'm hard pressed to even consider that. I would really prefer to give up more picks for Watson than give it up for Dak. I don't know if you guys want to rattle off any thoughts on Dak real quick before I jump to the next super chat, but whatever.
Dak,
what I will.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think he's staying in Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think that trading the number 2 overall pick for a guy who just turned down $35 million a year and whose ankle was decimated, I just don't know if that's the risk I'd want to take when you have the options that we do. I mean, like you said, if Dak Prescott was just going to come, he's so expensive and that ankle scares me. I would even take pause with that, but I think ultimately I would end up signing him if it didn't cost any picks. So I don't know, but I'm not really looking at Dak Prescott because like Matt said, I think he's going to be in Dallas.
Oh, right. I kind of think that as well. Now, maybe it's coming to a little bit more of a head because they're saying, like, oh, Russell Wilson kind of wants to go to Dallas. I don't see him getting traded. It's going to be a huge dead cap for the Seahawks. It's like $36 million or something bananas like that. Anthony Viturito. Sorry. Wow, words are hard right now. He says, have we looked at Casserly's draft?
Pretty interesting 6 days or so since Kevin Colbert's comments about Roethlisberger to now, knowing that he will be back as the starting quarterback here. How do we get to this point?
I don't know how to turn it off.
Well, Rhett, truly, there's been quite a bit of speculation for the last month or so as Ben Roethlisberger.
Don't you hate that when you open up a website and you got some friggin' not ad, but like a video playing? It's not even the first video. There's 4 videos ahead of this, and I had to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page to figure out which one was turning on all the music. Sorry. Okay. All right, so Casserly's draft, he has the Jets taking Zach Wilson at number 2. And then the Jets taking Joe Tryon at 23. That feels really high for Joe Tryon after opting out for a year. But I really like Joe Tryon a lot. I'm a big Joe Tryon fan. I would have thought Joe Tryon at like the top of the 3rd would have been good. So at 23, I'm not sure if I could sign on for that. But I do like the player. Green Bean, what do you think about Wilson and then Joe Tryon at 23?
Yeah, again, it's just the position's fine, but Joe Tryon's more than likely going to be a 3rd-round pick at the earliest. So I don't understand it. I don't understand why it just doesn't make sense to me. I think Zach Wilson's fine. It's simple. It's just making a choice at the quarterback position, and you chose Zach Wilson. If it was Justin Fields, I'd say the same thing. Okay, that's fine. But Joe Tryon in the 1st round, I think, is a massive reach that's unnecessary.
Matt, what do you think about Wilson? Well, I guess we know Wilson too. What do you think of Joe Tryon at 23?
I don't like it. If you told me he was at like 60, that's a little bit different, but I don't think he's going in the 1st round. I'd be surprised if he went in the 2nd round, maybe late 2nd, but I don't think he's a top 50 pick.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm hung up on this too. Benjamin, thank you for the super chat. Says A-Rob going crazy on Twitter about us trading for Deshaun Watson and him. Please tell me this could be a sign. So let me pull up Jets Twitter real quick. I'm gonna jump into Allen Robinson. I just want to see what he's liked recently because I have not kept too keen of an eye on it. Let's see. So. Crazy idea. Bears tag Allen Robinson and Jets trade Sam Darnold for Robinson. Jets sign Robinson to a long-term deal. Huh. Okay, well, there's a two-part thing to this. So let me look at, so Robinson liked that tweet, but let me see. Let's see. Where's the teams? I'm going over the cap right now. I'm curious what the wide receiver franchise tag is because it's got to be pretty
high. No?
Yeah, I would think so. So actually, it's not that bad. So 16.4 million. I would rather go with another wide receiver than trade Sam for Robinson. It's not that I don't like Robinson. I like Robinson a lot, but I think there's plenty of other really good wide receivers in free agency as opposed to trading our one tradable asset in Sam Darnold for a wide receiver. And then what else did he say? He's liked Darnold and pick 34, and you have a deal. That's interesting. He's liking, let's see, Allen Robinson, Deshaun Watson. Man, he's going crazy with the Jets. Yeah, it's like the last 4 things he's liked. 41 minutes ago, 35 minutes ago, an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
There we go.
Man, yeah, he's all about it. Man, if we can get Deshaun Watson. Yeah, that's just it. He's like, let me just see what I could get out of here. Like, if the Jets are, he's trying to use, he's like, I want to go to Jersey. Weed's legal over here. Come on, brother. Hey, Robinson, I'll buy you your first gram. Come on over. No, man, I don't know. I don't want to trade for Robinson. I think that's my hang up.
Did you wait? Hold on. He brings up a good point. Did you look at this whole draft?
Which whole draft?
Casserly's whole draft.
No, let's look at it.
See who's at 24.
Let's take a look at. Hold on. Now I gotta.
Who is it?
God damn it.
It's someone who should go in the top 5. That's my hint.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me it's like Parsons.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like
it's Fields, isn't it?
It's Justin Fields.
It's Fields.
What?
Yeah, that's right. I did know that.
He has Trey Lance
Fucking
going.
crazy.
Okay, hold on. I guarantee I'm gonna get this random fucking video playing again. So hold on.
We're gonna put all the defenders in one big.
There it is. Okay, found it right away. Gotcha, bastards. Okay. Trevor Lawrence 1, Zach Wilson 2, Jamar Chase to the Dolphins at 3, Trey Lance with the Carolina Panthers trading up to 4, Penei Sewell 5, Devontae Smith 6, Micah Parsons Lions at 7. All these make sense so far. Najee Harris at pick 8 to the Falcons. What? What kind of draft? That makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
Then they got Farley and Surtain.
He's like, I need to get some clicks.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Okay, so now you got Denver and Dallas both taking cornerbacks in Farley and Surtain. Waddle going to the Giants at 11. I think that makes sense. Kwity Paye at 12 to the 49ers. I don't know if I see them taking an edge so early. But I do think that's right around where he should go. Slater going to the Chargers. Edge rusher going to the Vikings and Phillips. Kyle Pitts to the Patriots at 15. That is a long drop.
Yeah.
I don't see him falling that far. I don't know where I would see him going, but definitely not.
But it makes more sense than 2.
Oh, yeah. Well,
at
for
least
sure.
that makes little sense at 15.
Remember when we were all talking about O.J. Howard just a few years ago and how he could potentially be the pick at number 6 for the Jets instead of Jamal Adams? And then he falls to, I think it was like pick 20. So who knows? Maybe Pitts falls, way further. But Pitts seems way better than anything Howard was coming out of college. Elijah Vera Tucker going 17 to the Raiders. Gregory Rousseau, the edge from Miami, going to Miami. Washington football teams takes Jeremiah Wusu Koramoah. Kadarius Toney to the Bears at 20. Tevin Jenkins, tackle from Oklahoma State to the Colts at 21. Anthony Costanzo's retiring, so I guess that makes sense. Jalen Mayfield, tackle from Michigan, going to the Titans. Joe Tryon to 23. Yeah, Justin Fields falling all the way to 24. Jesus. J.C. Horn going 26. Who else is in here?
Amazing.
That's like, this guy's in. He's got Patrick Jones going at 32. I like Patrick Jones a lot. This guy's off his fucking rocker. That makes no damn sense.
Yeah, he don't know.
I don't like any of that. Oh, I'm like choking on someone like spit. Ugh, sorry. All right. Let me scroll back over to the YouTubes and see what's going on over here. Anthony. Bam. Anthony. Well, Charles Hodgson, thank you so much for the super chat. He donated a $5 super chat, but I don't see any comment attached to it. It just says message retracted. So thank you for the super chat. Anthony Vittorito meant Casserly's draft as a whole. Look at the Steelers. Oh, that's what he was talking about. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a shitty fucking draft. Jordan Ivey, thank you for the super chat, says, would you sign Robinson and Samuel and cut or trade Crowder? Samuel isn't a number 1, but good for the scheme fit. A solid number 3 for the same cost as Crowder. Yes, I would. I would, if you could tell me I'm getting Robinson and Samuel, I will cut or trade Crowder 100%. Now, I don't see us going that rich on wide receiver. I think Douglas will probably sign a wide receiver in free agency, probably not 2. I don't know. Matt, what do you think about Robinson? If you could sign Robinson and Samuel, do you cut Crowder?
I think you'd have to. I don't think you could have 3 wide receivers that are making or combining for $40 million. So I think if you're signing 2, yeah, you're moving on from Crowder. I personally don't want to move on from Crowder. I like him. I would like to keep him around. So I'd pick one. Robinson obviously is the big fish, but if you can't get a big fish and you settle for a guy like Samuel, I think that could absolutely work in a system like this.
Green Bean, what do you think about Robinson and Samuel in free agency? Would you cut Crowder? Yeah. Or would you prefer maybe Crowder instead of Samuel? I don't know.
Well, the thing is, man, is like, if you're gonna cut Crowder for someone else and they have a similar playing style, they offer a similar impact to the offense, you have to wonder about the impact to the team. Like, this is stuff that I think about. It's like, why? Like, Crowder's an effective talent. If you maybe justify it with, hey, he does get injured every year for a couple games, that kind of stuff. But if you're like a Curtis Samuel, I think, what is he, 5'10"? So he's like a similar kind of guy to Crowder. I like him, but Crowder is, I don't see the reason to move on from him. So like Matt said, I would like to see Crowder retained unless we absolutely needed the money for some huge thing like Deshaun Watson or something like that. And I don't think we're going to go out and get 2 big name receivers. I think that we're going to keep Crowder, bring in a big-bodied receiver, and then draft Crowder's backup like an Amari Rodgers, that kind of a player in the draft. Because we already have Denzel Mims, so we'll have the 6'2" and above receivers. You got Crowder playing the slot, and you start to groom guys to replace him next year. But I don't see it, man. I just don't see creating the need to bring in the same skill set, even if you save $1 million. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can wrap my head around that. Mikey Malls says, I'd trade Sam for Robinson straight up any day. Broken quarterback for a star wide receiver. Sure, Robinson probably has 4 to 5 good years left, but you're probably taking wide receiver with that pick anyway, and he's a sure thing. So if you're saying Sam is worth, let's call it a second-round pick, and you would have taken a receiver that's at best a 50% coin flip of hitting or not, yeah, I guess that makes sense. That said, the Bears have 46 players under contract. They have $233,000 in salary cap space right now. I don't know if that's updated as of the Buster Screen release or anything else that has potentially happened in the last day or two, but they cannot afford to franchise tag Allen Robinson unless they restructure a ton of guys. So I would say more than likely he's absolutely hitting free agency. So I don't think you're going to have to trade for him at all. What do you think? Would you give up Sam for Robinson, Green Bean?
I wouldn't like that. I get it. If it, yeah, I probably would. But I would see that. To me, the way I see Sam is he's a late first, early second. So I would like to be able to sign Robinson in free agency and then get the extra capital. But if that's what it boiled down to, is just Sam for Robinson, and we called it a day and gave him $16 million a year for 4 years, you know what I mean? Something like that. I'd be happy with that ultimately, I think. I just hope it doesn't go that way.
Matt, what do you think? Would you trade Sam for Robinson?
I don't think so. I just don't think the value's there when you can sign someone. Yeah, maybe they're not as good as Allen Robinson, but it wouldn't be giving up an asset to then have to sign said asset. You just have to pay the money. Yeah. So I think I'd go that direction instead.
Mikey followed it up with Chris Godwin getting franchise tag, so signing will be more expensive because there's less supply. I've heard Galladay is a good candidate for the franchise tag, and they might be looking to get a second-round pick for him. Chris Godwin getting the franchise tag, has that been heard of yet? Is that what they're saying, or
rumored? That's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I heard they were gonna try and franchise tag him, I think, and then I don't know if they're just gonna try and figure out Shaq Barrett on a trade. If I were them, I would tag Barrett and allow Godwin to test the mark, because you can bring back Antonio Brown for not a whole heck of a lot of money. You got good tight ends. You have Mike Evans. To me, wide receiver feels like the least of your issues in terms of franchise tagging someone. Green Bean, what do you think about Godwin getting franchise tagged? You think that's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, I agree, man. I think exactly what you said. I was having a conversation yesterday, and I kind of fell to that same, a very similar conclusion. Dude, they're so stacked in receiving options, and Shaq Barrett is a special, he's a good defensive player. You don't have many guys that are like him filling that role. Like if he leaves, that's going to be a void there. Where if Godwin leaves, you still have Evans and Brown, and then you have the tight ends. And, so there, I think that odd man out would more than likely be Godwin. I'd be surprised if they allow Barrett to leave and retain Godwin. But then again, it could be the money thing. You heard Shaq Barrett saying, I think this year I think I might break the bank. It's my year to break the bank. That's not the language you want to hear. You know what I mean? That's not what you're hoping to hear when your guys are hitting free agency. So, but I agree
tag
with
him,
you, Ron.
right?
I think
he just got the franchise tag last year, right?
Right, exactly.
So let's see. Let me pull up the Buccaneers cap situation real quick. So they're at $12 million under the cap. They have 45 players under contract, so they got to get a few more players. Shaq Barrett, if he gets the franchise tag, there's no way that is the correct number. Because since he got the franchise tag this past year, he'd have to get 125% of what he got this past year. So let me see real quick what he was getting. Shaq Barrett last year, he was tagged for $15.8 million this past year. So quick math puts him at, what is that, 18 million? 15.8 up 120%, maybe a little bit more, 19 million. I still think it's worth it. He's going to get over 20 million a year, I think, as an edge rusher. So I don't know. We'll see. KNYGMA07. That's a hell of a name. Brings up, Fields could fall if San Francisco, Washington, and the Bears resolve their quarterback needs pre-draft. Bears should sign Alex Smith is a possibility. Yeah, I think if I were the Bears, I would be looking to bring in Alex Smith. Alex Smith is going to hurt Sam Darnold's trade value, I think, because I thought the Bears were probably going to be a key spot for us to trade Sam. And if I were the Bears, I would rather sign Alex Smith for no money and try to figure out, maybe draft a quarterback. Maybe they take a Mac Jones later on or something like that. I don't know if trading for Sam over Alex Smith is necessarily the move they make. I don't know. Matt, what do you think about Alex Smith, and what do you think about the Bears possibly bringing him in, and how does it affect Sam Darnold's trade value?
I'm kind of going the other direction with you. I think I'd rather trade for Sam Darnold. Alex Smith is going to be 37, and I don't know how healthy he is. At times he didn't look right when he was back. Yeah, I know he went 5-1 with the Redskins or with the Washington this year, but there was a game where he threw 3 interceptions. His passer rating was like 74 or 75, somewhere like that. I don't think he played particularly well over the whole sample size. There's a couple moments where he looked pretty good, but I don't know. I wouldn't, if I'm the Bears, I don't know if I'm trading for or signing rather a 37-year-old quarterback who has had injury history the last 3 years. To me, I'd rather Sam Darnold. I'd rather Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's going somewhere to back up. I would be surprised if he gets a starting job.
Green Bean, what do you think about Alex Smith potentially going to the Bears, Fields falling? Does it affect Sam Darnold's trade value, all that good stuff?
I agree with Matt. I don't think that they're really the same guy. I mean, like when you're looking at Sam Darnold, if you're going to trade for Sam Darnold, you're taking a swing that this guy could evolve into a true franchise quarterback. If you're grabbing Alex Smith, he's more of a bridge type, in my opinion. I mean, I happen to like Alex Smith's story. Like, I like how hard he worked and came back from. I really appreciate and respect that. That said, I don't think they're really looked at in the same vein. I don't think anybody's saying we can have Sam Darnold or Alex Smith and choosing between the two. I think they're looked at differently right now. So, yeah, I don't think he's necessarily knocking Sam's value down all that much.
So where do you think Alex Smith goes then? Like where do we see him landing? Part of me wants to see him go back to like San Francisco or something like that, or I don't know. I felt like Washington was such a good spot for him. Like if they brought in like an extra quarterback to compete with him, I legitimately have no idea where he goes, aside from maybe like going to the Bears and them drafting a quarterback and him being the bridge quarterback. Like I could see that making a ton of sense. Matt, what do you think? Where do you think Alex Smith winds up?
Kansas City as a backup. I think maybe like a team that is a contender that needs like a quality backup in there. So like Kansas City, Seattle if they keep Russell Wilson. Maybe you could tell. Maybe Belichick would take a chance on him. I don't know. I feel like he usually does that.
I was just about to say that. I was going to ask you, what do you think about him going to the Patriots? Like, I wouldn't mind it, honestly, because he's not going to run around quite as much. I don't see it being any better or worse. They're just like than Cam Newton. I think it's probably somewhere in the same vein, just less of a running threat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Greenby, where do you think Alex Smith ultimately winds up?
Yeah, how interesting would that be if he did end up back with Andy Reid? Like if Andy Reid said, "Come on here, man, we'll put you behind Mahomes and all that." That would be I think that would be a nice story. But I think he might be able to be a bridge quarterback down there in New Orleans. Might be a good spot for him. I think bridge is the way to look at him. Or just straight up backup at this point. I know he's going to want to be a starter, but I don't know how many teams are going to be signing on for Alex Smith at this point. So maybe New Orleans, Kansas City. I think that'd be some good potential options.
Kansas City makes a lot of sense. I think that would be a really cool story to see him go back there with Andy Reid, play for a potential Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is one juke away from needing Alex Smith in there, so you never know. It's a loaded team for sure. It's Jess says Jets release Henry Anderson. Yes, Jets have released Henry Anderson. $8.2 or $8.3 million saved on the salary cap. Matt, I don't know if we got your thoughts. What do you think about Henry Anderson? Was that actually? I think that was the first thing you brought up. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, it was the right thing to.
Yeah.
It clears up a bunch of space. He's not a fit. He's a 3-4 defensive end. They're going to move to a 4-3. Everyone knew this was coming.
Greenby, any thoughts on Henry Anderson?
Well, look, there's a comment. I think it's the right thing to do. I think Henry Anderson, we took a nice shot. We traded a 7th for him. He did well. We extended him. He really hasn't done much. We have young guys. I think he's an absolutely upgradable player, and I think we should do that. So especially at $8.2 million, recoup it and move on. There's an interesting comment saying, did you see the Twitter rant from Maye's agent about he went off on the Jets for not taking care of Maye? I didn't see that. Did any of you guys see that?
Do we know what his agent's name is? Let me see. I'll see if I could find it on Twitter. I'm assuming It's Twitter. Is that what you said? It's Todd something?
Mike.
Todd.
I don't know.
I don't know. You're just throwing names out there. What the hell?
Yeah,
Let me see. Marcus Maye.
Yeah.
Agent.
Bill.
Let's see. I'll find it. I have no idea. How do you find who their agent is? I just Googled it and I can't find anything. I don't know. His agent's blowing smoke. Basically, Maye's upset he's going to get franchise tagged, and they're like, I'm going to take my player's side, of course, because he's about to sign any type of deal, which is going to get the agent more money. So, I don't know. I'm not going to take too much stock into it, I guess. Ooh, you got it,
Matt? So Eric Burkhart says, so he's replying to the Field Yates tweet. He says, yet refused to take care of their best player, captain, team voted MVP in his prime, who had several All-Pro votes and who played out his entire rookie deal and even changed positions on his contract year after they got rid of last year's All-Pro safety. Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to say for his agent.
And this goes with what I was saying earlier, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But this kind of goes with what I was saying earlier when we were looking at the positives and the negatives of the franchise tag. Like, clearly there are positives. Clearly you can see why it makes sense from certain perspectives. But there's another piece to this, which is that Joe Douglas has not managed to extend one player yet of any consequence. We did the 1 years last year, but we haven't extended anyone yet. And you have a guy like Maye, who's a leader of the team, plays very well. He's a good player and, never complains, like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, where are we going to start to take care of our own guys? I think Maye is a good place to start. And there's some concern there with why we're not doing it. Like I said, so that's one of the potential negatives of not being able to extend him, and how that kind of filters through the team, and what players think of our GM and the management and such. That's something to think about.
So we haven't gotten too much into the whole Deshaun Watson thing. It's been very very quiet on that front tonight, a little surprisingly so, aside from like the Allen Robinson tweets and whatnot. So Anthony comes in saying, do you guys think Watson gets traded before the draft? So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. What do we think happens with Deshaun Watson at this point now? We've heard like little rumblings here and there, but by and large it seems relatively quiet. Green Bean, what are your thoughts on Deshaun Watson, and is he going to get traded before the draft?
I still maintain that Deshaun Watson is our 2021 starting quarterback, and I think the deal is the second overall pick, Seattle's first next year, a third, and a player. It's not going to be Quinnen Williams either. It's going to be John Franklin Myers, Ashton Davis, somebody like that. That's going to be the deal, and that's the way I see it.
Matt, what do you think about Watson? When do you think he gets traded, and will it be before the draft?
If the Texans were smart, they would do it before the draft, but that's another thing that I really have a hard time getting a read on, because the Texans are just so poorly run right now. I think they should trade him before the draft, but maybe they'll hold on to him and just make this go as long as possible, which I just think makes things so much worse.
So there's an interesting thought process that I want to pitch to you guys, and you guys let me know what you think about this. So I do think that Watson should be traded, particularly before free agency, so that way free agents know if they should be signing with Houston or not, or whatever. But the Jets have already said, we can sit back and wait. Our worst option is taking a quarterback at 2 or trading down and rolling with Sam Darnold. We got plenty of options. We don't have to make any rash decisions right now. And the Jets have come out, or maybe not the Jets, but it's been reported that the Jets are going to wait and see all the pro days before they make a decision on Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold. Those pro days, I want to say Trey Lance is March 12th, Zach Wilson's is March 26th, and then Fields is March 30th, which means if the Jets are waiting at the very least until Zach Wilson has his pro day, that's 2 weeks after free agency, the tampering period starts. So that means the Texans are just sitting there waiting, like no one knows what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Who's your quarterback going to be? And you're just sitting there waiting that. And if I'm the Jets, I absolutely play that card, and I wait and I wait and I wait. And then if it looks like there's nothing going to happen before the draft or at the draft, Jets are on the clock at 2. Maybe I consider, like, if I was thinking I'm not 100% sold on Wilson or Fields, what do you guys think about trading down? Let's say it's to 4. Let's say it's to 8. Well, whatever. You get a first-round pick for next year. That's the big takeaway here. So you get 3 first-round picks for next year. If Watson's not getting traded for the number 2 pick, I don't think he's getting traded at the draft. So that tells me that Watson and the Texans are going to try and play hardball against each other. So they're going to see if Watson's actually going to hold out and waste $20 million or whatever he'd lose for next year. If the Texans were to trade Watson, they would have to eat $5 million in salary cap space in addition right now. So there's really no financial reason to do it aside from wanting a quarterback and wanting picks and sort of hitting the refresh button on that whole franchise. So if they trade him after June 1st, there is no cap ramification as far as losing additional draft picks or losing additional cap space, because that dead cap hit now gets split over 2 years as opposed to just the 1 year this year. So now they roll into the season. Deshaun Watson's holding out. The Jets get to see what's happening with Sam Darnold. We get to see, okay, is he going to be the guy? We have already made all our picks in this year's draft. We have already signed all our free agents. Now the Jets have 3 first-round picks next year and have the inside track of getting Watson if they want, or somehow if Sam doesn't work out, they can trade a bunch of picks to try and get up and get a quarterback next year. What do you guys think of that potential plan and how that could possibly work out? Now, I don't think you do that with the intention of getting Watson. This is only a situation if you're not 100% sold on one of the quarterbacks at 2. Matt, what are your thoughts on that?
I personally couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't bring myself to do that, but it's not a bad alternative option. Like, they have a ton of different ways that they can go with this. And that's certainly one of them. Like, you made a compelling case, but I don't know if I could bring myself to make that leap.
Green Bean, what do you think?
Well, I think it's so interesting, man. And, we just on the last podcast I did, we talked about the true equation with Sam Darnold. So like, if you are looking at, so Deshaun Watson isn't going to happen this year. It's just not materializing. So then you have an option. Am I going to take a quarterback at 2? Or am I going to use 2 to acquire capital, right? So the real equation is Sam Darnold plus the 2 or 3 firsts and a second, whatever it might be, versus Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. So if you choose to retain Sam specifically because Sam and 2 firsts and a second are worth more to you than Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, that does leave the window open for Deshaun Watson next year if the Texans are just dragging their feet. So that, if you look at it that way too, if the Watson trade just isn't materializing, but it looks like there's some potential there, the Texans just are having difficulty getting out of their own way, that could be an added benefit to considering the Sam Darnold side of things. Like, in the event he doesn't work out, where we still have the inside track, we have additional capital. It's going to be even less painful to trade 3 firsts for this guy. So I think that could absolutely be something they're at least tossing around. I think I didn't look at it that way, man. That's pretty interesting, Ryan. I think they could definitely factor that in.
That's what I got noodling around in my brain all the time. Like, I'm thinking of all these different like potential situations. I see underneath this hat, and specifically under my pilot hat, wherever that is right now, there's tinfoil lined in all of it. And I am real high on all these different things. Mumtaz coming in with a super chat right at the end of here says, why is Watson thought of as Saint Watson? He gave teary-eyed thank yous to ownership 6 months ago. Isn't it poor character to change so fast? It's probably poor character to tell him that you're going to go and take his thoughts into consideration, ask him who he would want for a head coach, and then just go like, F you, we're going to go sign the guys you don't want while you're on vacation, not take you into account. That, to me, is more of a slap in the face than Watson committing to the Texans. He wanted to be there. I don't think there's any shame in that. I just think that management was so horrible. And I do think there is probably part of it with like the agent realizing there's not as much ability to bring in talent. You don't have your first or second round picks this year. Like you don't have any cap space. Like there's a lot of more that goes into it than just Watson. Like I don't think he's fully absolved of blame, but Watson's a good guy. His character should not be called into question. The guy donates meals to families. He's donated his time. I'm 100% on board with the character of Deshaun Watson. Matt, do you have any issues with what Watson is as a person, a character, personality, I guess?
Not at all. He's done a shit ton for the Houston community since he's been down there for the hurricane in 2017 and everything that was going on in Houston this year, or in Texas rather this year. Seems like a stand-up guy. Obviously there's a disagreement between them and ownership, and they hired basically someone who was a priest for the Patriots to run the team. So, like, I'd want out too. Yeah, I'd be doing the same thing he is.
Yeah. It makes no sense. Greenby, what do you think? What do you think about Watson's character?
Well, I think the other thing to factor in when you're looking at this is that J.J. Watt asked to leave as well. So there's something going on down there. The winds of change are blowing. You know, they let Watt go because, you know, he's $17 million without any cap ramifications. So it was a little bit quieter. But both of their best players asked to leave this year. So there's more to it than just looking at Watson. And I also think another thing which shows how kind of backwards they are right now, when they hired the GM and the coach and they wanted to go have that first conversation with Watson after making the promises to him and then going around him, they sent the new coach that he never met before to meet with him. They didn't even, the owner should have gone to him, the one guy that he knows in this scenario, and sat down with him. And they didn't. He sent Cully, who for all intents and purposes, really, I mean, I think he's like a B choice at best for a coach. So you send Cully to go talk to him, and you don't even sit down with Watson yourself after all this happens and try to clear the air. So I think there's a lot more to it than just Watson being a dick. You know what I mean? So I think his character's fine as well, man.
Robbie, thank you so much for becoming a member of the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. We got the 10 o'clock mock coming up here in just a little bit. John Perez comes in with a last-second super chat saying Marcus Maye agent had an interesting tweet about Maye, and it is 100% interesting because he is very fired up at the Jets as to not taking care of their captain, their potentially best defensive player, the guy that switched positions, in a contract year. I can understand why the agent is tweeting the way it is, because Marcus Maye is absolutely going to get the franchise tag due to the value. But guys, we have reached the end of our stream. I am going to go around the panel and get our closing thoughts. Greenbean, any last words for the people out there in the chat?
Yeah, I'll apologize again for my delay, guys. I'm in Orlando. I'm leaving tomorrow, going back to the city. I should be better next week. I have high hopes. But again, you guys can go to Green Bean Jets Fan on YouTube. My most recent podcast is up. And every Monday night at 10 o'clock, we do the mock. We had a contentious mock last night, but it was awesome. Come check it out.
Matt, any last words for the panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Head out over to Matt O'Leary NY. Check out some content. We got the Just Jets podcast up this week doing voicemails. You can call in, leave me your questions. We'll try to get to them on the show, and it's always a joy talking Jets with you boys.
Guys, I'm going to plug my own thing. We got Jimmy coming in as the newest member of the Jets Talk 24/7 channel. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I'll see you in just a few minutes over at the 10 o'clock mock for members only. And then, boys and girls, I have heard the requests. I've had messages about it. I am coming out with this year's Fuck, Marry, Kill series. It's coming out in the next few days. I just did my research on it, so I have my offensive linemen, my wide receivers, my edge rushers. I got to come up with a few more positions. I'll probably do cornerbacks, things of that nature. So make sure you leave a comment on this video for what you want me to go through. But I'm looking forward to it. Guys, my name's Ryan. I've been your pilot tonight. This is Talkin' Jets. We'll be back here next week, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Thank you guys so much for hanging in. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out, and we will see you here next week. Jets.